Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special Friday Breeders' Cup edition of Out of the Gate. I'm your host, Dan Illman. Let's take a look at what's on tap for the show. DRF handicapper Mike Beer and I will take a look at the 5 major Breeders' Cup races for 2-year-olds on Future Stars Friday. The Timeform U.S. boys, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski, they're going to chime in on their opinions on some of the major races. David's going to spotlight the Juvenile and the Juvenile fillies. Craig's going to project the pace of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf and the Juvenile fillies. We've got Nicole Russo from DRF Breeding. Her pedigree pick segment focuses on the Juvenile fillies as well. Lots to cover. Let's start handicapping. We break out of the gate by taking a look at the first Breeders' Cup race of 2019, the Juvenile Turf Sprint. Let's take a peek at this field. It's an overflow field of 2-year-olds traveling 5 furlongs on the turf. $1 million is the purse for expanded stakes previews of all the Breeders' Cup races. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike trainer Wesley Ward has a very strong hand in this field. 3 prime contenders, but perhaps his best contender is 4-wheel drive, a son of American Pharaoh who has been very impressive in 2 starts.
Yeah, I mean, Ward's got 3 in here. 2 of them certainly between 4-wheel drive and Kamari look like prime contenders in this race. 4-wheel drive, he's just run really well in both of his starts. 2 stakes wins. In a lot of ways, he might be the horse to beat in here.
We're going to take a look at his most recent start, his first start in New York after a win at Colonial Downs to begin his career. He rated off of a loose pace setter early, attacked on the turn. He's taken over the lead right now. He's going to get a little bit drifty in the stretch, but I still think this is just inexperienced in a 2-year-old that's learning. He has good tactical speed. He is going to be tough in this Breeders' Cup spot. He's also likely to take his share of money. The Europeans, they bring a strong contingent as they do each and every year, Mike, and you're taking the horse with perhaps the most accomplished form, a 3-time Group 2 winner overseas.
Yeah, number 10 is Ali. This horse has just been really good in all of his races so far. We're going to look at his second career start. This is the first of his Group 2 wins, the Norfolk Stakes. Just his second career start. You can see he's in a little bit of traffic here, just holding position. He will come clear late in this race and come with a really good finish to get up at the end. He's won 2 more Group 2 sets this Dan, and when you watch his races over there, he just looks like a really adaptable horse, which I like about him. He's shown speed when he had to get involved early. He has shown the ability to sit and run when that was required of him. He just seems like a really professional and talented 2-year-old, and I thought he could get a good trip in this race.
Lasix on, Frankie Dettori retains the mount. In this race, I loved the way that he sat in and among horses. It did not faze him in the slightest, and when he came clear, it was a nice, strong run. I'm going with the European as well, not as accomplished as Mike's top selection. That's the number 8, Dr. Simpson. This filly beat some older horses last time out, albeit getting a big weight break in the Group 3 Mercury Stakes at Dundalk Stadium over the synthetic surface. That was a race that Declaration of Peace used to propel him to a win in the 2017 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Both of Dr. Simpson's wins have come around left-handed turf courses, and unlike many European horses, she has a good amount of speed. She's going to be forwardly placed, and best of all, she is going to be a price in what I believe is an extremely competitive edition of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Craig Milkowski of Timeform US projects the pace of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and it isn't easy, but if there's anyone that can do it, it's Craig.
Hi, I'm Craig Milkowski at Timeform US for this Breeders' Cup Friday edition of Out of the Gate. In this segment, I'm going to look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. It's race 6 being run Friday. It's at a mile on the turf, and it's obviously for 2-year-olds. And the reason I picked it for this pace projector segment is it is noted in our pace projectors being a race we expect to have a fast pace. You can see that by the red flag in the upper right-hand corner. I've also noted on the preview page several of the horses who are listed as trackers or leaders or speed, and that's what goes into the designation. And you'll also notice that we have 2 horses pretty closely bunched up front, number 3 Peace Achieved and number 9 Gear Jockey, and that's also one of the determining factors. The field size of 14 also adds to that. You're much more likely to have a hot piece in a big field than you are a small field. Let's take a closer look here at our pace projector and just point out a few things. You can see the 3 and the 9 grouped closely in the front. You can also see the number 8 horse is taking blinkers off. That is Billy Bats. So what that does in the pace projector is actually pushes him a little bit further back than he otherwise would have been had he left blinkers on. There are a few notes in here. Number 5 is a deep closer. He's expected to be so far back he couldn't quite make it into our graphic. And we also have 2 foreign shippers, the 12 and the 13. The 12 is a morning line favorite, Arizona, who we're going to talk about a little more closely. He is expected to show some speed, in my opinion. The number 13, Fort Myers, is not really a contender for me and also not a pace factor. Let's start by taking a look at the projected leader. That would be number 9, Gear Jockey in here. He's a solid enough horse. He's run a 97 time form US speed figure last time out. That was his best figure as of yet in his 3-race career. He is still a maiden, but he has shown high speed. He ran a good 3rd in the Bourbon Stakes last time, a race where he lost to Peace Achieved, the horse who was in here with him. Vitalogy was also in that race. So while I do expect him to be a pace factor, I don't really consider him to be a contender. Peace Achieved is the horse I just mentioned. He is coming out of a win in that Bourbon at Keeneland, the Grade 3 race. He raced up pretty close on the pace, as he has been likely to do in all of his career races after his debut at 5.5 furlongs. He was further back that day, but since he stretched out, he's always been up there. He did run 100 time form US speed figure. He has 108 on his resume 3 races back, but the pace is likely to hurt him. Let's take a closer look at Arizona. I think a lot of people just suspect because a horse is shipping over from overseas, particularly Europe. This horse is trained by Aidan O'Brien. He's a morning line favorite. And they tend to think of all the foreign horses as closers. But watching his replays and reading the comments, I don't really get that opinion at all from him. He looks like a horse who has some good tactical speed, likes to be up front. He was actually in front in his last race before being run down by the very highly regarded Pinatubo. But that horse did it pretty easily over soft ground. And I just think this 12 post position, which I've also highlighted here, the fact that he's a horse who hasn't displayed a really strong finishing kick and probably likes to be closer up than further back, is not a good sign for him. His 111 time form rating is the strongest in the field, so I understand the favoritism, but on a day like the Breeders' Cup, I'm going to take a shot against. The horse I'm going to do that with is Vitalogy. This horse actually made a huge closing bid in his last race, that Bourbon, to finish second. He got a 96 time form US speed figure that day, which it doesn't look great compared to all the other horses in here, but the visual was super impressive. I mean, the replay is worth watching if you get a chance. He drew the 14 post that day, lost a lot of ground, and I mean, this horse was just absolutely flying at the end. The pace was, although we do have the 6 furlong fraction coded in red, it wasn't crazy fast or anything, as we saw Peace Achieved and Gear Jockey, the other 2 pace setters, finish 1-3 in the race. So I don't really think the race particularly set up well for him, but that run just blew me away, and I think he's the horse to beat in here. So I'll be going with Vitalogy in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf.
Let's throw up the field for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf card. It is race number 6 at Santa Anita on Future Stars Friday. $1 million is the purse. Truly international field. Chad Brown, Christophe Clement. They train 2 of the favored North American-based contenders, Instructor and Decorated Invader, respectively. Aidan O'Brien from overseas brings along the morning line favorite, the number 12, Arizona, multiple Group 1 placed in his last 2 starts, a Group 2 winner in his own right, Mike Beer, and he has been facing a sensation over there in Pinatubo. I know it's sort of a lateral move on paper, Group 1 to Grade 1, but he might be getting a little class relief in here.
Yeah, I don't think he's facing anything like he's been facing in his last 2 starts over there, that's for sure. This horse, he was a pretty forward 2-year-old Dan. He looked really good winning starts number 2 and 3, including the Coventry. He feels like a horse who fits really well as he ships over into this race. And, you know, just based on his last 2, where, yeah, he's no match for Pinatubo in those races, but he actually acquitted himself pretty well in those races. He has to stretch out He has to do it from post 12, and he's got to do it at a short price. So all those things might make you want to take a shot against him, but he does feel like the right morning line favorite.
And he has to ship from all the way across the pond. Well, your top selection in this race is based at Santa Anita and has already won over this course and trip. You're looking for a price. The 14 Hit the Road's going to have to work out a trip from out there.
Yeah, that was ultimately the deciding factor for me, though, that it feels like he is going to be the right price in this race. This horse is 2 for 2 on turf. To me, he's looked really good winning both times, and that includes the Zuma Beach, which we're going to look at right now. They rated him early, Dan. He got a good trip in this race. He was not outrun. He just settled off it. You're going to see him come to the outside right now and just run this field over in the stretch. This is a really impressive win for this horse. You know, post 14, no bargain, obviously. He's going to need a trip from out there, but the price will probably compensate for that. I think he has the right rider to perhaps work out the right trip. And when it came right down to it, the other two horses that I'm interested in, Decorated Invader and Peace Achieved, who both, drew much better towards the inside, they're also going to be much shorter prices.
I'm going to go for a little bit of a price as well. That's the 13 Fort Myers. Now, most folks might think he's already exposed after 7 lifetime starts. I'm not sure he's exposed yet because he's never gone a round of ground and he's bred for it. He's by Warfront. His dam won the Irish 1,000 Guineas. The dam's a full sister to Glen Eagles, a 5-time Group 1 winner. And this is the family of Giants Causeway. This horse should relish longer distances. And his last race, I thought, was a good confidence booster, albeit over a synthetic surface at Dundalk Stadium, where he saved ground in behind, altered course to split horses in the stretch, and then came with a good run to finish it off nicely. A horse that has winning experience over a left-handed turf course. I think he's going to come running late, and there should be enough of a pace for this horse to attack in the lane. Fort Myers, 12 to 1 on the morning line. I'll take a chance with him. David Aragona of Timeform US. He's going to spotlight the Juvenile fillies, and then after the break, Mike and I will tell you who we like in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies. Winner of that race, likely Eclipse champion 2-year-old filly.
Hi everyone, for this week's Timeform US Spotlight, the first of 2, I'm going to take a look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, and I want to begin by looking at the Timeform US pace projector for this race because I think the pace of this race is going to have a major impact on the chances of a few key contenders in this race. And looking at the pace projector, you see that red bar predicting a fast pace. The 2 horses that are likely to vie for the early lead are the number 7 Wicked Whisper and the number 1 Donna Veloce, who we'll get to in just a second, but there are plenty of others in this race with speed who want to be forwardly placed, like the number 2 260, the number 4 British Idiom, the number 9 Comical, and even horses like Perfect Alibi and Lazy Daisy are not like they want to be far off the pace early. So I think it's going to be a pretty contested early pace, and I wouldn't be surprised if a fast, honest pace does develop up front. And it remains to be seen how that is going to affect the chances of the number 1 Donna Veloce. We'll see if she goes off favored or if the public gravitates towards one of the horses coming out of Grade 1 wins, either in Kentucky, New York, or California. Donna Veloce, though, most lightly raced member of this field, potentially the most talented member of this field, though I think that remains to be seen as she stretches out to the mile and the 16th distance. She won her debut impressively going the 6.5 furlongs. I know she got a very high buyer for that race. The Timeform US speed figure of 103 doesn't make her quite as formidable. Some other horses coming out of stakes races have run just as fast, and that number is a little bit lower than the buyer because you see those blue color-coded pace figures for the first couple of fractions. That knocks down the figure just a little bit because she did get a very good trip up on the pace. Also take notice that this was a day at Santa Anita where the race rating is color-coded pink, indicating that this was a track that was slightly favoring runners towards the front end, so that may have also helped Donna Veloce. She's bred well enough to get the distance by Uncle Mo out of a Monjou dam. There is plenty of speed in the second generation. Her dam actually her second dam Cash Run won this race back in 1999. Donna Veloce is a contender. I just don't want to take a short price on her, given her inexperience and all the questions that she has to answer. The horse that I would put on top is the number 6 Bast. Looking at that pace projector, I think Bast is just going to work out a great trip. She's a horse that's proven she can rate behind horses, so I don't think she's going to be too negatively affected by having to get a trip from mid-pack in this race. I know that her speed figure dipped a little bit last time out when they stretched her out into the 2 turns in the Chandelier. I don't really want to hold that race against her too much because you see those blue color-coded fractions. The pace of that race was very slow for the distance, and over a deep, tiring track like Santa Anita, when you start start out going slowly in these longer dirt races, it's really hard to speed up and run a fast speed figure at that point. So I don't think she was ever really put in a position to run a fast race last time. She should have gotten some needed fitness out of that race. I expect her to move forward. She had already proven that she can run fast too back in that Del Mar debutante win when she got a 1:05 time form US speed figure, one of the highest numbers in this race. And she's bred to go the distance, so I'm not really concerned about her not being at her best going the mile and 16th. I just think Bast makes a lot of sense in this race. A long shot that I would throw in underneath is the number 8 KP Dreamin'. She's probably not good enough to win this race, but given the projected pace situation, I think you want to pay attention to her late pace rating of 90, which is the highest of any of the horses in this field. I always like to pay attention to that when you have a fast-paced situation. KP Dreamin' has to get a little bit faster, but in the Chandelier last time, she was actually most negatively affected by that slow pace because she was towards the back of the pack early, was trying to make up ground late. She's really bred to run all day, seems like a grinding type who can pick up pieces, so I would use her underneath in some exotic bets, but I think Bast is the most likely winner of this race, and if she's anything around 5-2 or 3-1 like she is on the morning line, I think that's a fair price, and she's my pick in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, time form US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
So you think horse racing is all about fancy hats and mint juleps?
But horse racing is a big business in the Commonwealth, from the breeding shed to the racetrack.
It's all part of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
So I bet you're wondering, where do I start?
We all have the same answer.
U of L,
U of L.
the University of Louisville.
We're all graduates of the Equine Industry Program.
So what are you waiting for?
The U of L Equine Industry Program has been developing leaders for over 32 years. Apply today.
Welcome back to a special Friday edition of Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1 $2 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies for expanded stakes previews of all the Breeders' Cup races this week. Visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. The Juvenile Fillies carded is race number 7. They're going to go a mile and a 16th. I think it's a very talented crop of 2-year-old fillies that we have this year in North America. Mike, the number 6 Bast, multiple Grade 1 stakes winner. Grade 1 stakes winner over course and distance, has beaten a couple of these horses already and is trained by Baffert. There's lots to like.
Yeah, there's nothing to complain about with this horse. So actually, the only loss so far came in her debut. She actually ran well that day in a race that she looked like she needed. Since then, 2 for 2, both Grade 1s, including, as you mentioned, a win over course and distance in the Chandelier, which we'll look at right now. She was very, very heavily favored in this race. And she's going to really work for it, Dan. She has to fight for this at 1-5. But, you know, she was taken out of her game a little bit. The expected pace setter dumped her rider at the break, and it just sort of left this race wide open for anybody. And, you know, Bast had to go up there and race on the pace the entire way. I thought she did pretty well to prevail here.
I thought it was a good effort for her. Should have her ready to go from a foundational standpoint for this race. I don't think she's going to be on the lead in here. There's too much speed. It's nice to know that she can rate and finish. The horse that I think is going to be on the lead is your top selection. Remember, only one horse in this race has reached the Beyer par of 91 for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It's your top pick, and she did in her debut.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Donna Veloce can do here. Her debut is really something to see, and actually we're going to show it to you right now. She really, she was no secret in this race, Dan. She took all the money, a $500,000 purchase. I don't know, she just really ran well in this race, right to the top, never really asked for anything through the stretch and just buries this field with the 91 Beyer speed figure. I get it. She has to stretch out. She has to step way up in class and face some better horses. I just like the fact that she's drawn to the rail and is probably going to make the lead in this race. And I'm going to give her a chance here. I don't think it'll be an upset if she wins, but I'm going to take her to take down some more experienced horses.
One of the experienced horses is the one I like, the 7, Wicked Whisper. She's got speed as well. In fact, she's never been headed from 2 lifetime starts, but I have a feeling that she can sit just a little bit, and I think she'll be second in the early portion of the race. off of Mike's top selection. Let's go back to her most recent start, the Grade 1 Frisette, only her second lifetime outing, stretching out from 6 furlongs to a mile. She made the lead. Look how confidently she's being ridden by Joel Rosario. That's a pretty nice mare. Frank's Rocket on the outside, coming up to Wicked Whisper. Rosario never gets the stick out. This is just a strong hand ride to the wire. She galloped out well. I see no reason why she can't stretch out another 16th of a mile and handle 2 turns, and I believe that she can sit just off the pace and get the jump on the true stalkers and closers. Wicked Whisper, my top selection to make it 3 for 3 for trainer Steve Asmussen. She is 7-2 on the morning line. Let's go to Nicole Russo's pedigree pick segment. She's going to talk about some really strong pedigrees in this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and then back to David Aragona, who spotlights the Juvenile.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to Out of the Gate as we analyze the Breeders' Cup Friday program devoted to the 2-year-old races. And there are so many terrific storylines here from a pedigree perspective. You have this strong class of freshman sires, including Triple Crown winner American Pharoah with 3 entrants. You have American Pharoah's grandsire Empire Maker with a juvenile entrant and 8 rings from his first crop since returning from Japan. You have Juvenile Fillies turf entrant Sharing, whose dam shared account will try to become the 4th Breeders' Cup winner to be the dam of a Breeders' Cup winner. But I want to zero in on one storyline I've been tracking that really comes to the forefront in the Juvenile Fillies. As we look at the field, you'll see the morning line favorite Donna Veloce down on the inside, and you see that Bast is the co-second. Those fillies are by Uncle Mo. And his success with his juveniles this year is significant because these 2-year-olds represent the crop conceived after Uncle Mo's record-setting freshman season of 2015. So no surprise if you pay attention to those sort of patterns that the Stallions runners are ascendant again. Of course, that first crop led by juvenile and Derby double hero Nyquist, so we know Uncle Mo can sire a distance runner. So let's take a look at the female family of these 2 fillies. Now, this debut from Donna Veloce, winning by 9 1/4 lengths with a 91 buyer, was impressive enough to make her the favorite for the Juvenile Fillies in her second start and stakes debut. The $800,000 Phasig Gulfstream purchase is stretching out from 6.5 furlongs to a mile and a 16th. Her dam Coin Broker by the multiple European Classic winner Montjou was winless. However, Coin Broker out of a terrific race filly who could carry speed a distance in Cash Run. We're going to go ahead and watch her here, winning the 1999 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies on the front end. Cash Run went on to be a very interesting broodmare, producing Saudi Arabian Horse of the Year Step in Time and Slovakian champion Move Your Vision, both of whom could go a middle distance, along with an Irish Stakes winner. Cash Run out of the Grade 1 winning Router Shared Interest. A lot of speed in the extended family. Shared Interest also produced Grade 1 winning sprinter Forestry, by the way, the broodmare sire of Nyquist. And it's also the extended family of 2-time Bosberg winner Sewickley. So plenty of speed there, but the presence of Cash Run close up makes me feel a lot better. I think Donna Veloce can go the middle distances of 7 furlongs to a mile and a 16th at least. Now, Uncle Mo's other entrant, Bast, is more of a proven commodity. She's already a multiple Grade 1 winner, including this hard-fought score in the Chandelier, routing at Santa Anita. So she's maybe not as brilliant as Donna Veloce, but I have fewer concerns about any of her ability to get the distance. Now, one thing I find very interesting here is that her dam Lafina, a half-sister to turf router Menanchan McLear, by the way, is by Arch. That late sire, also the broodmare sire of Uncle Mo. So close up, 2 crosses to that Claiborne Farm stallion, who is definitely a stamina influence. And this female family has found success with Arch's line. Lafina is also a half-sister to stakes winner Charming and Lovable, whose foals include this mare, Fault, by Arch's champion son Blame, winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic, of course. You're watching Fault in her biggest career win, cruising home in the Grade 1 Santa Margarita at 1 1/8. So more evidence of main track route ability in this immediate family, especially with this cross. Fault, a 4-time graded winner on both dirt and turf. So there you have it. A closer look at Uncle Mo's 2 entrants in the juvenile fillies. We'll see if he can add another Breeders' Cup score to his resume on this Future Stars Friday program. Now let's get you over to David for more analysis of this card with the Timeform US Spotlight.
Hi everyone. For the second of this week's Timeform US Spotlights, I'm going to take a look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, race 9 on Friday at Santa Anita. And it really is a 2-horse race. This is not one that I feel like we have to overcomplicate. Dennis's Moment and 8 Rings are the 2 likely favorites, and I think they are far and away the 2 most likely winners of this race. Let's take a look at each of them, though. The number 1, Dennis's Moment, there's no questioning his talent. He's earned 2 Timeform US speed figures in his last couple of starts that are just superior to everybody in this field. I mean, the 117 that he got when he won that Ellis Park maiden race by 19 lengths, you rarely see 2-year-olds running that fast, especially in the summer and even into the fall. I mean, we haven't seen too many 2-year-olds match that kind of number going back the past few years, and he handled the stretch out last time in the Iroquois. Was that the toughest field in the world? I don't think it was, but he won that race in stylish fashion, was geared down at the end. Now, I don't think you'd want to suggest that he could have won that race by 5 lengths and earned a Timeform US speed figure of 120, because the visual just doesn't quite support that. Scabbard was getting to him at the end of that race. But Dennis's Moment obviously has a ton of talent. He's got a beautiful stride on him, gets the distance. I think he makes a ton of sense in this race. I just question the trip he's going to get a little bit, because as we move on to look at the Timeform US pace projector, I think 8 Rings is going to be pretty loose in this race. It's not a situation where you see that blue bar predicting a scenario favoring horses on or near the lead, but when you look at the running styles of the horses in this race, it gets pretty close to that characterization, because the only horses that have the tactical speed to really stalk 8 Rings are Wrecking Crew, who's stretching out, and Storm the Court, who stalked him in the American Pharaoh, but never really got that close. So 8 Rings is just going to be loose in this race, and I think that's going to make him pretty dangerous, because he's a really talented horse in his own right. The American Pharaoh last time, as we move on to look at 8 Rings PPs, he earned a 109 Timeform US speed figure, not quite matching what Dennis's Moment got, but 8 Rings was still a little bit green in that race. He kind of ducked out heading into the first turn a bit. John Velasquez had to straighten him out, and then when it came time to apply some pressure in the stretch, 8 Rings was shying away from the whip a little bit. Just a horse that still has some green issues to work out, so I think he might still have a step forward in him. He's trained very well out of that race. Bob Baffert sounds like he's really high on this horse, and he's got that experience over the track that can be so valuable at Santa Anita. And I just think 8 Rings is the kind of horse that has a little bit more upside, whereas Dennis's Moment seems like he might be a finished product already. So 8 Rings, given the potential pace advantage that I see on paper, I'm just going to take him at a slightly better price than Dennis's Moment. They're going to be very close in the wagering probably, but I do think Dennis's Moment will be favored in this race. So 8 Rings is going to be my pick here. Not expecting to get anything better than around 7 to 5 on him, but I think even that would be a fair price given how much quality is concentrated at the top of this Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Let's meet the 2-year-old fillies getting set to go 1 mile in race number 8 at Santa Anita on Breeders' Cup Friday. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. $1 million again is the purse. We have a big, strong field. Lots of European entrants in here, but we also have some nice North American-based runners. Chad Brown has Selflessly, winner of the Miss Grillo. Sweet Melania, the number 12, won the Grade 2 Jessamine. And let's talk a little bit about Sweet Melania. This is a daughter of American Pharaoh. She is a neck away from being unbeaten on the turf. And Mike, she ran away from those horses last time out at Keeneland. I wonder if she's really reaching her maturity right now.
I mean, she's run really well in her 3 turf races, really improved off of her dirt form in her first 2 starts, Dan. And I'm just, sort of done knocking this horse. To me, in all 3 of her turf races, she's just run really well. And that includes the P.G. Johnson, the only loss where, I don't know, I think you could argue that maybe she was even best that day. Let's look at the Keeneland win, though, the Grade 2. Because she just destroys this field. She sat right up on the pace in this race. She has taken it over readily at the top of the stretch, and she absolutely airs on this field. And if she runs another race like this, she's not going to be easy to beat in this race.
And she has the tactical speed to make her own trip, and that's so valuable in races like this, especially if you're stuck in outside post positions. We saw Sweet Melania do this at Saratoga in her maiden win when she stretched out for the first time, getting right up close to the pace. It's nice to know that she's adaptable. She is a prime contender, to be sure. We're used to seeing these Aidan O'Brien 2-year-olds with 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 races under their belt. We've got the 14 Étoile in here. She only has 2 races, but she does have Frankie Dettori and Lasix.
Yeah, she has a really tough post in this race. So I don't, we're going to see if she's going to be able to overcome that kind of stuff. But you're right. Usually Aidan O'Brien, he does not mind running his 2-year-olds and giving them plenty of work. And he hasn't done that with Étoile. But she missed a lot of time after her debut. The things to like about her, Dan, is that he debuted her in a Group 3 race. And she ran really well that day, I thought anyway. I thought it was more of an eye-catching debut, sitting in behind for a long time. She really only got clear inside the final furlong, and then she came with a really nice finish to win that race, I thought. And she just missed a ton of time after that. When she came back off the layoff last time, I realized that she didn't run that well. But it was a really difficult Group 1 race she came back in, and the pace of that race was fast. Étoile was chasing that fast pace off the layoff. She got tired at the end. I do not think that effort is as poor as it may look on paper. I would need a big price on her, Dan. I'm not going to sit here and suggest I would bet her at anything under 10-1. But if she's a price in this race, I'm going to hope she gets a trip from post 14.
I'm going to go with the Irish Raider, the number 9, Albania, 3 for 4 in her career. Now, maybe she really appreciated the soft ground last time out in the Prix-Marcel Boussac, but she had a lot of running still to do at the furlong pole. She was about 2 lengths behind a lone pace setter that looked like that horse was on its way to victory. This horse dug down, gave an explosive turn of foot late to win. She has done it on firm turf in Ireland in the past, and that makes me hopeful that she'll handle the firmer ground at Santa Anita. She's only lost once in her career. It was reported that she was in season after that race, and that race also came on the heels of a 2-month layoff. This filly just needs to work out a trip. She doesn't have a lot of early speed. She'll likely be at the back of the pack, but she has kicked on very strongly in the lane. I really like the way she's finished up her races, and I think she'll be running late. A daughter of Zafani, that's the number 9, Albania, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Let's go back to Craig Milkowski. He projects the pace of this year's Juvenile Fillies, and then we'll wrap things up with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Hi, Craig Milkowski for Timeform US with another Pace Projector segment for this Breeders' Cup Friday edition of Out of the Gate. In this race, I'm going to look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies being run at 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt. And it drew a smallish field of 9. I say smallish because, for a normal day, that's not bad at all. But for the Breeders' Cup, you usually expect a little bit bigger. But even with just 9, the Pace Projector still thinks the pace is going to be hot. You can see our running styles. I've highlighted some of the leaders and speeds in here. I've circled in blue a couple of the horses I think are more likely to be running late. And then I've noted a big question mark next to Bast, who we'll talk about here in just a minute. She's 7-2, second choice on the morning line. And I think the race really kind of centers around her and how you focus and how you decide what you're going to do with her. Let's take a closer look at that Pace Projector. And you can see we got 2 horses grouped tightly on the front end. That's Donna Veloce, the morning line favorite at 3-1, who's coming off just 1 race, a maiden win, and Wicked Whisper, who's also undefeated. Then there's another group of 3 horses just tucked in right behind there. So in addition to there being plenty of speed, we also think the race is going to be pretty well contested up front, and that leads to that red fast pace label. Let's start with Wicked Whisper, the horse that we have projected right up front. She's won 2 races. She's done so pretty easily. She's done it with good speed figures. She got better last time, moving from a 98 to a 104. The biggest concern with her is she hasn't been around 2 turns yet. We're going to see that with some others in here. So the second turn is definitely a question. She's a contender, but the hot pace in the second turn could be reason to play against her. The horse who's projected right up on the lead with her is that 2-year-old filly, Donna Veloce. Very promising filly, obviously. She got bet down to 3-5 in her debut. She won super easily. She's projected as a horse with a running style of, I believe it was leader based off that first race. No, it's actually speed. I forget. We don't do leader off of 1 race. But You know, it's hard to say with these lightly raced fillies, and that's what I was getting at. The pace she set was slow that day, so she doesn't seem like a horse that's likely to run off. But the big question was her. She drew the number 1 post, so I think her hand's going to get forced a little bit. She might have to use that speed early, whether she wanted to or not originally, whether that was the plan. So I am going to expect her to be part of the pace, and a pace that I think is going to be hot. So once again, at a short price, not a horse I'm going to be super interested in. Another horse that we predict right up near the front is 260. Hard to really argue with that. She showed plenty of speed sprinting. Her third start at Gulfstream, she ducked out, lost the rider. That's why I've kind of lined through that. That race doesn't really tell us much of anything. But then when she stretched out to 1 mile and a 16th at Gulfstream, her first try around 2 turns, as expected, she went to the lead. She was able to win. I don't really consider her a contender in here. That 89 time form US speed figure is certainly not going to factor in the outcome, but she's a horse who will be part of the pace, and again, I do expect it to be fast. That brings us to Bast, who's really the tricky horse in here. We have her labeled as a speed horse, but I'm just not sure that's quite accurate. I think it's largely because of that last race where she was right up on the lead. She was able to win. She was within a neck after a half mile, but that was largely due to the crazy slow pace. We have these highlighted in blue. If there was a way to do it, we would have them highlighted in some kind of super royal blue, because this pace was just insanely slow. From a speed figure perspective, from a running style perspective, I don't think it tells us much. What it does tell us is that Bass was pretty game. She was able to hang with Comical, a horse who is in this field, and I have no doubt she's better than. But she was able to wear her down despite that tactical advantage of setting a very slow pace and being able to sprint home. Comical's proven to be a very good sprinter, and that's essentially what this race turned into. So I think Bass is going to run a much better race, probably at least that 105 speed figure. She ran 2 races out, and I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in that race last time out, as I said, from a speed figure or a pace perspective. A couple other horses that I am interested in is horses that are going to be making up ground. The first one is British Idiom, who won the Alcibiades very easily at Keeneland. Beat the previously undefeated Perfect Alibi, a filly who had done very well, had won a couple of stakes races at Saratoga, but just made a big swooping move. She wasn't way off the pace. The pace was pretty quick that day, so she does have tactical speed, but it's hard not to be impressed with the way she won. The other horse I expect to be closing late is number 8, KP Dreamin'. She's a horse who hasn't had the best of it from a trip perspective. I expect that to turn around here on Friday. You can see she was in that slow pace race with Bast and Comical. She was able to make a nice middle move into 3rd from 5th before flattening out a little late, but that's not really surprising. She doesn't have any red fractions in her PPs, nothing you could say, well, she's had a fast pace before. So she's one that's going to be a bit of a price that I'm going to use along with Bass. So for the juvenile fillies, my top pick is going to be Bast, and I'm going to use her in exactas with the 4 British Idiom and the 8 KP Dreamin'. That's it for this Breeders' Cup Friday segment of Timeform US Pace Projector, and we'll be back Saturday with a couple more races to talk about.
Let's throw up the field for the feature race on Breeders' Cup Friday, the Grade 1 $2 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This race will determine the early favorite for the 2020 Kentucky Derby. For expanded stakes previews of all the Breeders' Cup races, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Notable scratch, the number 9 Maxfield, withdrawn Tuesday morning due to a leg injury. Winner of the Breeders' Futurity, he was going to be one of the favorites in this race. With him out, I want to talk about 8 Rings and begin the conversation with 8 Rings, highly touted since even before his career debut. Tried 2 turns last time out in the Chandelier Stakes, and Mike, I thought he made a legitimate pace that day. He had every right to look a little bit tired in the stretch, and I think he's getting the lead once again.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll look at the replay of the American Pharoah right now, just so everybody can see it. But yeah, you're going to see him. He's on a clear lead at the top of the stretch. And he is going to get tired at the end of this race, Dan. You'll see him in about the 16th pole. He's going to jump to his wrong lead and just not finish that strongly. But I'm kind of with you. I feel like he had a reason to get tired in this race. It is his first route race. And they did send him from the gate. They wanted the lead in this race. I thought he went fast to get there. And I just think he made a legitimate pace all the way before just winning clear at the end. It was a really nice performance for a horse. The 2 times that his riders actually stayed on, he's looked good in both of those races.
He's the horse to catch. Arguably the horse that beats the one Dennis's Moment. Just an exciting prospect. Son of Tiz Now. Won his maiden race by 20 lengths, Mike.
He just looks like the goods in this race, Dan. We'll see what happens. I'm not knocking 8 Rings at all. 8 Rings looks like a nice horse as well. And I'll admit, I was going to take a shot against both of these horses with Maxfield had he run, but he's not running. And that just leaves me with Dennis's Moment. I wasn't way against him anyway, Dan. The video that we have for him is of his maiden win. He's another horse who lost his rider at his first career start. This is his second start, the maiden win at Ellis Park, and he just absolutely throttled this field. He's going to leave everybody far, far behind, win it by almost 20 lengths with a 97 Beyer speed figure, a second start. Much like 8 Rings, they stretched him out around 2 turns. He handled it really well. He won easily again. He looks like a super talented colt, and he's got a nice draw on the inside.
To me, even though that maiden race was flashy, I thought the Iroquois was better in the fact that he had to do it around 2 turns. He had to settle a little bit from off the pace. And he did everything like a true pro, like a really seasoned older horse. He looked strong in the stretch. He's the horse to beat. I don't want to have too much money in against him. I want to give Scabbard a chance, though, perhaps to turn the table. Scabbard ran second to this horse, Dennis's Moment, in the Iroquois last time out. I think at a key juncture on the backstretch, he ran right up onto heels and lost a little bit of ground while Dennis's Moment was beginning to make his move. When Scabbard did get into the clear, he was reaching out for ground, got beat less than 2 lengths by Dennis's Moment. If this pace heats up a little bit, I'd like to see Scabbard come with a big run under Mike Smith at a big price. He's 8-1 on the morning line. He'll go down with the scratch of Maxfield. Dennis's Moment, though, don't want to have too much money in against him, but Scabbard will be a better price, and I think he is on the come for trainer Eddie Keneally. We thank you for watching this special Friday edition of Out of the Gate. Stay tuned to DRF TV. We will have the Saturday edition of Out of the Gate up later this week. In the meantime, stay tuned to us on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for our Friday edition of Out of the Gate. Best of luck when your horses break.